Hello and welcome back to this Hustle Castle dungeon guide. This will be everything you need to know how to be successful and the best practices to use to win the most from your dungeons. If you want to know how to win fights like this, then make sure you're subscribed for my bosses videos coming out later so you know how to fight every boss like a champ. And no, this isn't how you're meant to do it, it's just I thought it'd be funny to show because you can actually do it with the right tanks. This will be a breakdown of the guide and how we're going to go about this so you know what you're in for. There isn't going to be a guide for the bosses in this one, so I'm really sorry for anyone that was looking for that. I promise I'll make a whole video on them, it's just unfortunate this will make the video extremely long, and it's just unfortunate that each boss is specific to certain situations of what you should and shouldn't have. So we're going to start off with what are the best team setups for people from level 9 to level 11. Now starting with from 9, with a hero let's say below 400k, the best team that you can currently take would be 3 tanks, 4 resurrects and a healer or archer depending on who your next best person would be. If you're wondering why so many resurrects, it's because for weaker people and players who haven't got the regeneration yet unlocked on their hero, they will struggle to keep their tanks alive for every waypoint, so you might be thinking why not healers? The reason why you don't use healers is because you'll find lots of waypoints have enemies that either prefer mages or aiming for the furthest person. Both require resurrects with the amount of damage that they actually do so quickly, so healers aren't so reliable and that's why you need so many resurrects. For from 10 or above, once you start unlocking regeneration and start aiming towards making your tanks super tough, you can almost run 80 to 90% of the dungeon on just them themselves. But a similar setup still applies. I would recommend 4 tanks, 3 resurrects and an archer. The reason why I would say so many resurrects when I just said you could do 80 to 90% with just tanks is because boss fights will either take mainly tanks or mainly resurrects, so you'll need at least 5 between you for most of these ranged bosses. Now we're going to focus on the hero guide for people from 9 or 400k less power, and we'll work towards the others just later on. You need to aim to get these things upgraded as soon as possible for the best effect. For warriors I'd recommend Vampirism and Sharpened Blades. They're a very good combo for damage and lifesteal, and then followed up by Robust Health, Master of Defense and Anti-Magic Plates, so you can really make your melee fighters proper tanks. For mages you need to work towards Sage and Spell Reflection are a great way combined to help with resurrecting your team as healthy as possible and casting as many useful spells at the same time. Other things like Astral Exercise, Magic Charms and Conditioning by Magic are great ways of keeping your mages alive as much as possible, as they will get hurt the most when starting off with your hero. I would rank all of the above in the order of what I recommend for each type of unit to go for first, or at least maxed out first. This would be different for higher level heroes, but for people below 400k this is what you should be aiming for. It would go for the warriors, Robust Health, then Vampirism, then Sharpened Blades, Master of Defense and Anti-Magic Plates. For mages I would say Sage would be the priority, then Spell Reflection, Astral Exercise, Conditioning by Magic and Magic Charms. You may have seen I've said nothing about archers, and unfortunately they just aren't as useful in dungeons compared to mages and warriors, and just take up too much space for them to be fully worth it. You can make it work, but this is a much more consistent way of winning dungeons. I like to keep one in the background only for sacrificing or as a means of doing particular bosses a little easier, like the Vampire Count, Supreme Mage, Gatekeeper, Goblin King, Treebeard and the Invincible one. Unfortunately they're not essential for most of these with the correct setup, so that's why they're just not as important. The Horned Helmet, Champion's Belt and Sorcerer's Hat are a must, and these others are going to be good options for fillers if you need to. So you've got the Armoured Hamster, Mithril Shackles, the Magic Signet Ring and Ace Up the Sleeve. Now for from 10 and above. This will be your hero guide, just remember to follow the things from the previous parts. From 10 has 2 main improvements you can give for your hero, and that will be for your tanks and the team, but the first will be regeneration. With this and all the other tank things I've mentioned before, you'll start to see a big improvement in your squad, and once you get it maxed out you'll never need resurrects during normal waypoints again, with the exception being all healing is returned into damage. This will be very difficult now because of what you just bought, but with resurrects this is still very doable. The next big thing would be the Fiery Totem. You will find to begin with this will have an immediate effect of keeping your resurrects alive until you can max out the regeneration ability, and even in arenas and clan wars this can be a great distraction if your archers or mages keep dying to assassins that teleport to the back, making this a great counter because enemies have to go for this first. Absolute power can be a great thing to level up as well. This works both for your damaged mages and normal fighters like healers and resurrects, because this will give them a chance to either inflict huge damage or really bring someone back to life. For Throne Room 10 I would recommend this setup for dungeons, or at least aiming towards once you get enough power. It would be the Fiery Totem, Champion's Belt and Sorcerer's Hat. Again I would say these are a must. And these other ones are going to be similar to Throne Room 9 with the Armoured Hamster, Chains and Ace Up the Sleeve. There isn't a guide needed for Throne Room level 11 if you follow what I've said before for Throne Room 10. You'll be absolutely fine, but there is still one main change you can do for your hero setup, and that will be the dungeon flag. This is what your ideal setup would look like. It'll be the Fiery Totem, Sorcerer's Hat, Champion's Belt and the dungeon flag, and then the last one is optional for your team style, depends how you feel. Here are going to be some great dungeon tips for you, and this will improve your chances along the way for getting as much out of it as possible, and some things you may not have thought of. On sacrifice, if your best tank is really low on health and you don't think he'll make it through the next waypoint, or you've got a boss fight in the other direction that you want to do, what you could do is sacrifice your best tank and then watch an advert to get him fully back to health, and there you go, your best tank's ready for the next fight. The only problem is this can only happen once per day, so just keep that in mind when you're doing that. The second tip I would give, when it comes to Mortal Kombat, decide who will win the fight. This is much easier with a friend obviously, but even if it's with a random player you can message them, or if you know they've got a much more powerful squad, there's probably not a good chance you're going to win it anyway, so you could just use it as another sacrifice and just keep your best team for the other waypoints. There's no point trying to put your best up there and losing out and then struggling for the rest of the dungeon. Don't be lazy with your heroes. Don't leave random flags on because you felt lazy. Everything can add up, especially when you're trying to get as far as you can go and defeat every boss possible. Always get your tanks tough and used on every waypoint, except sacrifice on Mortal Kombat unless you were going to watch a video for them. Tanks are always going to be needed consistently to complete all levels, so don't waste them and have them ready. You might think this is obvious, but I've seen plenty of people that go to the dungeon and have 1 to 2 tanks that are really bad, and they'll go down pretty quickly, and then they've got nothing else to actually protect them, and their mages and archers will just go down pretty quickly from after that. Apples or torches? This is actually a big question if you don't have a lot saved up. If you can consistently get to the bosses at the end of the maps and more times than not beat them, then it's absolutely fine using the torches to get those orange monstrous chests, which will give you more relics and points to go along with it. But if you're starting out and struggling to get even to those bosses, let alone even beat them, then I would highly recommend saving those torches and only spend apples until you've got 40 saved up, and then by that point hopefully your hero will be stronger and your team will as well, to then get to those bosses and finish them more consistently. Make sure you read your waypoints. The worst waypoint you can get at later levels will say all healing deals damage to allies, and there's no way to avoid it, but you can make it easy on yourselves. Don't use anyone that can heal, and it sounds silly, but it can get easy to get comfortable and just put up the same team over and over again, and this could be absolutely tragic if you're using it on the all healing deals damage to yourself. So just make sure you read every waypoint, and they're all specific, but only some of them are actually going to be that difficult towards you. If you've enjoyed this walkthrough, then please make sure you give this a big thumbs up, I really appreciate it, and subscribe if you want to see more future House of Castle videos. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.